There's been a bunch of really good reports out of camp, and then he also played well in week 1 preseason. Now, he played well versus guys who are going to be working at Walmart, guys who are going to be working at Supercuts, giving you the most terrible haircut you've ever had. Today is all about finding that needle in the haystack from preseason NFL action, looking at usage and players who shined week 1 of preseason and trying to find a great dynasty stash on your taxi or on your roster. Now, full transparency, guys, by the time you're watching this, I will be in Austin, Texas with Badaki. We'll be meeting up with all the Flock fantasy creators to do a draft together, to collaborate on content. So I have to record this video a little bit earlier than I originally wanted to. By the time you see this, a lot of preseason week 2 will have happened, but I still think there's massive value for you in this video. Let's start with some players that I have already mentioned as stashes, guys that I've already talked about a couple weeks ago, multiple months ago, that you should already stash that I would prioritize over the rest of the names we'll talk about. First one is Jordan Whittington. Whittington, the kid out of Texas, hook him, okay? But we talked about him a lot this offseason as a taxi stash, and he comes out preseason week 1, has 6 catches for 74 yards on 9 targets, the Sean McVay effect, right? And ultimately, the wide receiver 3 role is up for grabs in Los Angeles. And if you think about it, how long is Cooper Kupp going to be able to play in the NFL? Can Jordan Whittington develop a role that is long-term? He should be stashed everywhere. Another player we've already discussed is Andre Yoshivas, aka Yoshi. In the Bengals' first preseason game, they confirmed to us that they view him as a starter. You will already have access to preseason week 2. By the time you're watching this, I'm sure there will be more positive reports for Yoshi. If there isn't, clown on me in the comments. But in preseason week 1, Yoshi played more snaps than any other wide receiver. He had more routes than anyone outside of T. Higgins. So they clearly view him as a starter. As they've mentioned themselves, he'll be their starting slot receiver. That's very enticing in an offense that is very high powered and that throws the ball more than many offenses. They've been top 10 in passing attempts per game the last 2 years. All right, the third player we've already talked about, Jordan Mason. Very simple. He's been battling Christian McCaffrey for the RB2 role in the 49ers backfield. Okay, if CMC does go down with an injury, Mason could be a huge value. The next one is Greg Dulcich. I doubt Greg Dulcich is available in many leagues, but I just wanted to continually hype up his name on this channel. He rotated in and out with the starters in preseason week 1, but it's encouraging to see that he ran the most routes and was the only tight end targeted with the starters in Denver preseason week 1. Now, go ahead and check the reports for week 2. I don't have it on me right now because clearly it hasn't happened yet at the time of recording, but I'm sure we'll see similar signs. The reality is Greg Dulcich had a very good rookie season, averaging over 40 receiving yards per game. The unfortunate part is he's just been injured since then. If he can stay healthy, this team needs a receiving threat alongside Cortland Sutton, and Dulcich could be that. All right, and the last name that you should already have rostered is Blake Watson. We've talked about Blake Watson a lot. I mentioned him over 2 months ago on our taxi stash video, but we just really like the kid. We're very excited about him, about what he could do in the NFL out of Memphis, and we have heard Sean Payton talk about him in the Joker role. He compared him to Alvin Kamara very loosely compared him to Alvin Kamara. But in his first game, he had a rushing touchdown and a 33-yard reception out of the backfield where he looked very explosive. I think he could potentially make that roster. All right, moving on to players that we have not talked enough about recently. First one is the Giants running back room. Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray. This is all about taking a shot on uncertainties in a backfield. And by far, y'all know this if you know me, I'm a Tyrone Tracy guy. We were drafting him in most of our rookie drafts, late third, early 4th round, and we loved him coming out of Purdue. Friendly reminder, Tyrone was so extremely efficient out of Purdue. All right, if you look at 157 running backs last year in college football with at least 100 attempts, this is where he ranks. 21st in PFF run grade over 90, which is very impressive. 16th in yards per attempt, 4th in yards after contact per attempt, 17th in breakaway percentage, and 5th in elusiveness. My ceiling was Rachaad White for Tyrone Tracy. I think he's a very exciting player. And the Giants made it extremely clear to us that Tyrone is the RB2 on this team. With the starters in week 1, Tyrone took 11 out of 13 snaps, every single carry, and ran most of the routes for the running backs. Now, showed some good flashes, over 5 yards per carry. He looked very good. Unfortunately, Well, fortunately, I have the knowledge that Tyrone went down with an injury, right? He hurt his ankle. But I also have the knowledge that it's not serious, because originally when it was reported, we thought it would be a season-ending injury. If Tyrone is out there, he's got to be my number one pickup. If he's somehow on your waiver wire in your Dynasty League, that means your people are sleeping. All right, the second player we'll talk about is, what does Jalen do? Naylor. All right, if you know, you know. That's an OG call out. But Jalen Naylor, we'll talk about, seems to have a grasp on the third wide receiver role in Minnesota. The Vikings starters, they didn't play many starters, but the Vikings starters in preseason week 1, the starters played 12 snaps, and Naylor played on every single snap, tied Addison on routes run, and led starters in targets. So in a Kevin O'Connell offense, you want to have as many wide receivers as you can get. It's a very offense-friendly, receiver-friendly, quarterback-friendly offense. And if Naylor can develop a role in deep leagues, I think he's a fine stash. All right, how about Superflex leagues? Let's talk about Joe Milton. This is simple. All right, I'm not obsessed with Joe Milton, but we're trying to find the needle in the haystack. All right, we're trying to find the next Brock Purdy, for example. Superflex leagues, very unlikely to ever be a fantasy starter. However, there's been a bunch of really good reports out of camp, and then he also played well in week 1 preseason. Now, he played well versus guys who are going to be working at Walmart, guys who are going to be working at Supercuts, giving you the most terrible haircut you've ever had. All right, I get that, but he still looked good. He was 4 for 6, 54 yards and a touchdown. And if he ever becomes a starter, he has serious rushing upside with his frame. The fourth player we'll talk about here is Isaiah Davis. Isaiah has a chance to be the RB3 on the Jets, but here's why I am interested in him. Clearly, he'll never overtake Braylon Allen. However, he can give this team something Braylon really can't, and that's like this true, like, third down, James White, spread it out, receiving type of threat. Braylon is just not really a receiving pass catching specialist where Isaiah Davis is. And you saw that in the first preseason game. He was heavily featured in the air. So I think he's worth stashing. He's a good player. And he had very impressive numbers at an FCS school. All right, and the last player we'll talk about here is Calvin Austin. A lot of unknowns in Pittsburgh. Roman Wilson dealing with that ankle injury. Calvin has a very high chance to be the starting slot receiver for this team. And maybe Roman Wilson makes him completely irrelevant at some point. But what if, and this is what we're trying to talk about with these hidden gems, these stashes, what if we come out week 1 and Calvin has 6 targets and he catches 4 of them for a touchdown with 80 yards? I mean, that would be someone that you would then want to go pick up. We're trying to beat that waiver wire pickup. Unlikely to ever be a superstar, but who knows? Let's see what kind of plans they have for him. So what do you guys think? Let me know what you think in the comments below. In fact, why don't you say your best stash from preseason week 2? Let's help out the community entirely down below. Preseason week 2, tell me your favorite stash. I wasn't able to record that video because we're in Austin, Texas with everyone else on the Flock Fantasy site. So be a friend, help people out. And the last thing I'll say is if you want your team reviewed by us on a live stream, it's very simple. All you need to do is become a yearly Mother Flocker member with the promo code LAND. We'll dive into your team, tell you what suggestions to make, trades to make, what direction you should go into. The other option, if you don't want to be a yearly member, if you use a different promo code at sign up, is just by purchasing a team review on the site, which you can do with one of the links down below. I appreciate you guys for watching. Excited for football time. I have some ideas to collaborate with a lot of the Flock Fantasy creators on this site, and I think it'll be very valuable for you upcoming. So I appreciate y'all. We'll see you soon. All up. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.